Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our Realtor Safety webinar on hoarding awareness. As you may know, September is Realtor Safety Month, and so we're thrilled to be able to bring this training to you. And doing some research into, how many folks in the realtor profession handle hoarding situations, I came across quite a few that said that they had. So I don't want to take away from Erika's presentation, but I think that you're going to be blown away maybe by some of the statistics and come away with some really useful tips and resources on how to handle a situation that you encounter. And again, whether it's professionally or maybe in your own personal life. So to begin, let me just start by introducing myself to those that may not know me. My name is Jennifer Armandi. I'm the VP of Programs and Engagement here at the Cape and Islands Association of Realtors. Today is actually my 1-year anniversary of being here. So it's been a great year, and thank you all for letting me, help you in your membership. Joining me today is Erika Woods. She's the interim director of the Barnstable County Department of Health and Environment. And so she is going to be doing our training today. Prior to starting, I wanted to at least just share a couple of things with everyone that we have coming up on our end. So tonight we actually have a social that is going to be at, the company is called Backyard ADUs, and it's actually at one of their ADU locations, which is in Katuitt. So it's going to be a great way to see firsthand what these structures look like. And there's still time to register if you'd like to attend. So I am going to put the link to register in the chat, along with other things as well. Sorry, admitting people and copying and pasting links tends to be a little challenging. So thank you for your patience. Additionally, we have what's called our Passport to Leadership, and that is an opportunity to learn about all the different committees and groups that we have here at the association. So some of you may already be, involved in a committee already, but may not know the other opportunities that are available to you. So this is a free event to come and learn all about the various ways to become involved here at the association. And we are providing free breakfast that morning as well. And the last thing I'll share, just for the sake of time, is that in the spirit of Realtor Safety Month, we are going to be hosting an in-person Realtor Safety training. It's going to be hosted by, taught rather, by one of our own Realtor members who is a first responder for the Harwich Fire Department. And he's going to be joined with his colleague, who is the animal control officer for the town of Harwich as well, to go over some personal safety awareness, as well as some, animal safety training as well, which I believe we might be touching on a little bit today. So it might be kind of a nice tie-in. So please feel free to join us. All 3 of the events that I notated in the chat are free for you to attend. So we look forward to seeing you at any one of those events. So without further ado, I'd like to turn the presentation over to Erika. And again, as a reminder for those that maybe are just joining, if you have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to either unmute yourself and ask the question, raise your hand, and we'll notice that you have something that you'd like to say, or feel free to utilize the chat in order to ask the question. So Erika, you can take it away.
All right, excellent. Can everybody hear me okay? Hopefully, excellent. You'll see the side of my face a little bit because I got 2 screens here. So welcome. Thank you for joining us. Again, my name is Erika Woods. I do work for Barnstable County Department of Health and Environment, but I've been involved with hoarding since 2011. I started my career as an assistant health agent for the town of Orleans, and we had a couple of situations that we were called into, and we realized that the only tool in our toolbox was to write an order letter and tell the individuals to clean up. And really, if they could, they would. So it really was ineffective, and it really doesn't help the whole situation. So around 2010, there was a presentation at the Cape Cod Community College from some individuals from the Boston University School of Social Work, and they were trying to encourage task forces to be formed in different areas. And so we started as the Cape Cod Hoarding Task Force. We, through COVID, again, because it's under the Barnstable County umbrella, we ended up participating in a lot of the COVID response with the vaccines, the testing, and really our task force, was, we really couldn't do anything. We couldn't meet in person. So we took basically a hiatus for quite a while. And then when we came back to establish it, we realized that the task force name really didn't cover what we did. We unfortunately don't have the services to go into a home and help the individuals. We're working on that. But right now we're able to focus on education, collaboration, and support. So, we provide trainings. We will be bringing some more trainings to the community for, how to help individuals. We have some friends and family events that we provide across the region. Just a short, 2-hour kind of interactive, what if you have a loved one that is struggling with this? How can you help them? And then we also have what we call buried in treasures groups, which I'll get into a little bit more detail later on. But if you have a case, if you come across a situation and you're really not sure how to deal with it, feel free to pick up the phone and give me a call. And either myself or or one of my colleagues will work with you, and we can kind of talk through what's going on, who's already involved, who might be available in the area of the Cape, and see how we can kind of work through this. So, right now, like I said, we're basically kind of rebuilding, and we've started a pilot program where we're able to some coaching services after these buried in treasures groups. So we're hoping that will kind of gain some ground, to help these individuals. But from there, I'll just go ahead and jump in. All right. There we go.
Erika, really quick, can I just interrupt? Is there a way to make it so that we're only seeing one screen at a time? I think it has to do with the settings of your
you know what? I
presentation.
thought I switched that. But I got you.
Perfect. Thank you so
There
much.
we go. Thank you. So yes, so the definition of hoarding, there's basically 3 parts to this. It's a mental health disorder. It was separated out. It originally, prior to 2013, was under the heading of obsessive compulsive disorder. And, in 2013, the American Psychiatric Association split it out into its own diagnosis. And it's the persistent difficulty in discarding or parting with possessions regardless of their actual value. The difficulty is due to perceived need to save the items. Individuals have similar reasonings for saving these items. There's just this inability to really part with them. It's, I know I have, items from my family who have since passed away, and, you pick it up and it reminds you of, your mother, your aunt, and you think, oh, I don't want to throw this away because, it reminds me of them. But most of us have the ability to realize, okay, you know what, it's broken, it's falling apart. I'm not going to forget my aunt because I'm throwing this away. So it's okay to throw this away. Individuals struggling with hoarding disorder really can't make it to that next step of realizing that no, they don't have to hang on to that. And it gets to a point where the accumulation of the possessions, congest and clutter the living areas. So, I'm sure, we've either seen it on TV or in person where the individual can't shower. They can't, because they're storing items in the shower. They can't sleep in their bed. Excuse me. They can't, they can't cook on the stove, etc. So, once it tips over into where you can no longer use your living areas as intended, it really kicks it over into hoarding. There are a couple of specifiers. Is there excessive acquiring? Sometimes there is not excessive acquiring. I mean, this all started with QVC and the home shopping network, where people could just pick up the phone and order things. And of course, Amazon doesn't help. But there's not always that excessive acquiring. Sometimes it's items that that individuals have collected over the years. Again, family member passes away and they pass their items on to that individual, and then you buy stuff over the years and then you can't part with them because either it's a waste or yes, it's still useful, and it just continues to build and build and build. So there may or may not be that excessive acquiring. Level of insight, from my understanding, through research, that the majority of the individuals do have insight. They do understand that they have a problem. I think a lot of us don't see that because the next step is trying to figure out how to address these issues, and there's not a lot of resources for it. We also have to be careful because there are other medical conditions or mental health disorders that could have hoarding symptoms associated with it, and it might not be hoarding disorder itself. So, an individual might have a brain injury, Prader-Willi syndrome. There might be obsessions in obsessive compulsive disorder, and cognitive deficit. So again, what we're doing is not diagnosing the actual hoarding disorder, but we're looking at the hoarding behaviors and we're addressing them in the same way. So when you're looking at, again, the accumulating and saving, the need to save is at the heart of hoarding, and individuals save for the same reasons that the rest of us do. It's sentimental. Like this coffee cup, I remember having tea with my grandmother, and I know the handle's broken, but if I throw this away, I can't remember my grandmother anymore. Or instrumental. The coffee cup still works, doesn't have a handle, but I could still drink out of it. Or aesthetic. It's the most beautiful teacup in the world. I love it. I just, even though the handle's broken, I just can't throw it away. And again, the clutter and the accumulation of the objects is really what is at the heart of our concerns. Jennifer mentioned animal hoarding earlier. And really, a lot of people will say, well, how many animals does it take to trip over into that animal hoarding category? And there really is no true number. The definition really is having more than the typical number of companion animals, to the point where the individual can't provide the minimal standards, can't provide adequate food, sanitation, shelter, can't provide for the veterinary visits. But there's also a persistence in accumulating more animals. For whatever reason, I'm the only one that really knows how to take care of these cats. They love me, and I can't, let them go anywhere else because they don't take care of them as well as I do. And again, I'm sure you're aware that this really spills over into squalor. You've got your excessive feces, you've got pests around, the animals themselves, whether it's dogs, cats, it could be just about anything. You look at them and you could see that they're emaciated, and they're, maybe there's fleas, they're not well cared for. Generally what they're finding is they fall into basically two categories. The overwhelmed caregiver, again, that's, geez, I'm the only one that could care for these animals, and nobody can take them away from me. And then, again, the rescue mentality, where I need to collect these animals because they're not being cared for, and I can do it better than anybody else can. It's really a hard and tragic situation when we do run into those animal hoarding cases. I know we have an individual on our resource network who's an animal control officer for the town of Dennis. And prior to her job there, she was with the MSPCA. and came across a few cases. She told us about an interesting case where this individual collected a lot of animals, was definitely an animal hoarding situation. And they also collected plastic bottles. They couldn't part with the plastic bottles. And when they were given a choice of which one to part with, believe it or not, they parted with the animals as opposed to the plastic bottles. It's one of those things that I couldn't understand it, but that's where they were in their illness.
Erika, just a quick question that someone sent to me directly, is what about accumulating because it's worth a lot of money?
So a little bit later on, I'll get to a slide, and there is a difference between collecting and hoarding. So I'll kind of address that when I get to that slide. So again, hoarding myths and truths. Hoarded homes are filthy and the people who live in them are dirty. It has nothing to do with cleanliness. It has nothing to do with laziness or anything like that. There really is a deep-seated need to hold on to those items. Again, for whatever reason it is, the individual thinks that they need to hold on to them. Responsibility has really kind of come to the front of hoarding behavior from what I've noticed and from what a lot of studies say. We know the plastics are ending up in the oceans. They're ending up affecting animals. And a lot of individuals, if they don't think that plastic is going to go to where it needs to go to be properly recycled, they don't want to part with it. So it's more of a caring aspect than a laziness. Again, people who hoard are lazy and choose to live that way. Again, most of them have insight that it's really not what they want, but they just can't figure out how to change. And there really are, again, like I said, not a lot of resources around that. Hoarding versus squalor. Hoarding and squalor are not the same. Hoarding is the inability to part with items, whereas squalor is more of an apathy. There is, just kind of a self-neglect, social withdrawal. There's a, overload of garbage that the individuals just don't see it. We've all been, you can go nose blind if you have, if you're using bleach, and after a while you won't even smell the bleach because you've just used it so often, you're nose blind to it. And that's basically what this is. The individuals just don't even see, it's not there. There are cases where hoarding will tip over into squalor. For example, individuals who get Meals on Wheels and, maybe they don't eat as much as is delivered, but they don't want to waste it. They don't want to throw it away. So they'll put it aside and they'll put it in the fridge, and then the fridge gets too full, and then that spills over onto the counter. And that continues. And of course, there you end up with rotting food, you end up with pests, flies, etc. So, again, there are cases when hoarding tips over into squalor, and that really is exemplified in animal hoarding, where, the individuals start to collect the animals, they can keep up with it, and then after a while, it just becomes too much for them. So this is one of the interactive portions of the program here. So I have a few pictures, and I'm going to say, and I'm going to ask you, is it hoarding? Is it squalor? Neither, or both? I'll give you a hint. None of them is neither.
How do you want people to respond, in the chat or however?
If you want to say it out loud or in the chat, I'm okay either way.
Sounds great.
Hoarding, squalor.
Squalor.
Okay. Anybody else? See, I can't quite see. Can you see the chat when I pull it up or no?
I can see it, but no one's commented.
All right.
I would say it's squalor.
Yeah, it's definitely, yeah, you can see the bed, you can see all that. There's a possibility that it's hoarding. Here's where it's tough to see. One picture is really hard to say that it's hoarding, but if you assume the rest of the unit or home is like that, there's a collection of materials around it. So I would definitely say both on this one, but I could go either way on it. All right, there we go. How about this one?
Hoarding. Hoarding.
Yeah,
Hoarding.
excuse me. Yeah, that is hoarding. You don't see anything, no mold, no, rotting food, nothing biological. So yeah, I would say that's hoarding as well. I think I have one more.
Squalor.
Anybody else?
Hoarding.
Yeah, this is where I would lean towards both. There's definitely an overaccumulation of items. The squalor piece could be debatable. It's hard to see. Again, it's hard to get with pictures itself. I would lean towards both in this one, but I could go with just hoarding as well. So again, it's the hoarding comes down to the volume of material and the fact that it makes the unit or the area not able to be used as intended. This was part of the statewide steering committee, did a hoarding report in 2016, and we were looking at the expenses of hoarding, and these were a few cases that came across in this report, and you can see that it's really expensive. Greenfield, I mean, that's just amazing. The almost $400,000, and that really isn't the whole story. It's the police and fire, et cetera, really weren't included in that. Obviously, a fire fueled with excessive items because of hoarding is going to spread faster. It's going to be harder to take care of. So that is absolutely one of our concerns. Framingham, a similar condition. Basically, the legal fees and court fees built up on this to just address the situation itself. And the one that I'm more familiar with is this Mashpee case. The unit itself, the issue went to the Board of Health. They ended up ordering that the nuisance be abated. They actually brought somebody in to clean it out to the tune of over $40,000. And as we will further exemplify in a later slide, we do not advocate for cleanouts. There is near 100% recidivism rate for cleanouts, because what you're addressing you're addressing the tip of the iceberg. Basically, you're addressing what can be seen at the surface. The hoarding behavior and the items that we see are the symptom. It's not the illness itself. So it affects 2 to 5% of the population. I've heard up to 6% once you start getting into the elderly and older adults. Onset is really the early teens. And what that comes down to is, you're a teenager, you collect stuff, you collect items, and your parents tell you to clean up your room. You have to, they'll come throw things out. And then as you get older, you go to college, etc., and you keep it tidy because of your roommates. But after a while, you're out on your own, and it becomes easier to collect. And a lot of times there's some sort of a trauma that really exacerbates those behaviors, and it just kind of goes downhill from there if the individual doesn't get help. Individuals are much more likely to suffer from chronic medical conditions and obesity, and 92% of individuals who hoard have one other mental health issue, such as depression, generalized anxiety, social phobias, etc. Very often they are well educated. I've worked with individuals who are incredibly creative and smart, and doctors, dentists, attorneys, etc. So it has nothing to do with education level, and a family history of hoarding is very common. Um, individuals struggling with hoarding disorder often have excessively high standards and perfectionism, which really kind of seems funny. They look at uh, certain areas, and oftentimes they'll try to, when we're trying to work with them, we break things down into smaller pieces, because oftentimes, if they can't get it exactly the way they want it to be in that first try, then it's not even worth trying. Oftentimes they see narrow categories at the cost of the big picture. There's one individual who liked to collect office supplies, pens, paper, staplers, etc. And when they were asked to sort the pens into categories, they had one category for a blue pen with blue ink, another category for a blue pen with black ink, and another category for a blue pen with red ink, and so on and so forth. Whereas, we might be able to do a stack of blue pens, a stack of black pens, or a stack of pens with blue ink, or, et cetera. So it makes it hard for them to address the overall issue when it's hard for them to make an actual decision in the first place. Indecisiveness and procrastination. Again, if you can't make the decision easily, I'm not going to bother with that decision. I'm going to move on to something else. Difficulty trusting others. You have that situation where it's a lot like other, chronic illnesses, alcoholism, substance use disorder, where, the families have tried and pushed and prodded to a point where the individuals have just closed their doors, and they're saying, nope, I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to hear about anybody, because, nobody wants to help me or, treat me as I am. Difficulty regulating emotions, difficulty taking other perspectives. Again, executive functioning, attention, perception, decision making. I know I struggle with the attention. You go and you start cleaning your spare bedroom, and you take something and say, oh, I gotta put this into the den, and then you go to the den and you say, oh, I need to clean this up, and you start cleaning that up, and then, oh, I gotta put this in the kitchen, and you get to the kitchen and you're like, wait a minute, I started by cleaning the spare bedroom. What am I doing in here? And again, these individuals, have that to kind of an extra level, although I'm pretty close, I have to say. So here's where we get to the, collecting versus hoarding. There are collectors who truly have a lot of materials in their homes or their dwelling units, but their acquisitions are generally, when they're acquiring, it's generally organized and intentional. It's, my collection is Hot Wheels cars, and wow, there's I saw this one for sale. It's truly an antique version of it, and I really need to get it. Whereas an individual struggling with hoarding is, they drive by a yard sale and, oh, I have to go in there. I can't, my brain cannot tell me to continue past it. I need to pull in. Or maybe there's some negative emotion that they're trying to address, and it's like, okay, I'm going to call QVC because they're going to talk to me. They're going to be excited to talk to me because I'm buying something from them, and it's going to give me that positive reinforcement. Again, in collecting, items are organized. You can actually see them, display them. The individuals are proud of their possessions. They can be sold, traded, donated, etc. The individual can generally part with the items, if it's some sort of, oh, wow, I can get that antique piece, whereas this one's got a scratch on it, and they'll trade for me, whatever it is. Again, the individual struggling with hoarding, the items are disorganized. There's, no consistent theme. And that, when somebody tries to prod them to discard these items, they hold on to them even tighter. And often they're embarrassed or ashamed to let individuals into their homes. So that's, does that, hopefully that kind of answers the question. In this diagram, they have the same meanings for saving these items. It's just the overall shall we say, strategy. It's all for identity, safety, responsibility, aesthetics, the same reasons why the rest of us all save. Now, dangers associated with hoarding. I think all of us could probably understand what we're concerned about. The health hazards and safety hazards. Trip and fall is huge. Many of the individuals might even have trouble walking to begin with, and they're going through a home with their walker, and there's these tall piles on either side. I've heard of individuals who have rationalized the fact that they have those tall stacks of items because they can help balance them through there. Obviously the concern is that those stacks are not necessarily stable, and they could trip, fall, items fall on top of them, and then it might be a while before somebody actually finds them. Fire hazards, hazards for the individual. Maybe if there's a common wall neighbor, apartment, condominium complex, you're going to be concerned about that issue, similar to that fire that was very expensive. The fire loads, it's really going to be a big concern. Access to basic living needs, air quality concerns, structural hazards, maybe the health and safety of others in the home, elders and children. That is one concern that we really have is, if there is one individual in the home who is exhibiting this hoarding behavior and is bringing it to a point where it's not safe for the others in the home, then we really need to make sure that somebody is in there to help. So, what can you do? Initial engagement, you want to make sure that you kind of go in there with empathy and understanding that, again, it's not the individual being lazy. It's not a matter of somebody coming in and saying, this is a mess, you need to clean this up. What are you doing here? These individuals are the other thing to remember is, what would it feel like if somebody were coming into your home and making comments about your possessions and making decisions about your possessions? You don't need that coffee cup. You need to just throw that away. One of the exercises that they would do in some of the trainings is, you're sitting next to each other and it's okay, pull out your wallet, and put it on the table in front of you. And before you do anything, just let it sit there. But when I tell you to, I am going to ask each of you to switch, trade wallets, give your wallet to your neighbor and vice versa. And then I'm going to ask you to go in there and pull 3 items out of that wallet that you don't think that person needs. And then I'm going to ask you to throw those 3 items in the trash. And everybody quickly holds onto their wallets, puts them in the back pocket, and there's nobody. And the intention was never to ask them to actually do that, but it freaked everybody out so much, understandably, because this is something that's personal to you. It's something that, nobody else should be making those decisions for you. So again, you want to say things like, I'm concerned for your safety. I am concerned that we're not going to be able to sell your home in this condition. I'm concerned that you won't be able to make the money that you are looking for here. You need to build that trust and share that concern for the individuals. Focus on the safety first. Again, this is where your position in this is really tough, because you're not going to be the one that is necessarily doing the sorting and discarding, but you need to be that trusted person that they know that you understand that these individuals, we're all human beings. We all have our issues and our baggage. There's just different ways that people express that. Be supportive, know your limits. If this is something that is truly out of your realm, try to control your own reactions so that you're not turning that individual off to any help that you might be able to bring in. Some quick do's and don'ts. Again, Don't use judgmental language. Wow, this is a mess. What the heck are you doing? Don't use words that devalue or negatively judge the possessions. You want to, if they say this is my collection, okay, well, tell me a little bit about your collection. Not, wow, what are you doing with this junk? Things like that. Don't make suggestions about the items. Don't say you really should throw that away. It's really, and especially in your position, it's just a matter of trying to convey, okay, there might need to be some changes here before we can actually put the home on the market or whatever it is. Again, imagine yourself in that hoarding client's shoes, match the person's language, use encouraging language. Okay, especially if you end up with multiple visits, notice any progress. Wow, you cleaned off that couch. Wow, that's really great. Because even though you're not, the whole part of helping this individual to improve their situation, it's important that they get that positive feedback and that you notice that they're doing something, no matter how little it is. It's hard enough to keep that positive activity going forward, as it is. So having negative feedback really is going to put them back and make it worse. There really are some good programs out there, some positive best practices. I know that there's some social workers, mental health professionals on here as well. I'm not going to say former because I think you're always one once you get into that field. But medications alone don't alleviate it, but often medications are helpful for individuals who struggle with anxiety, depression, etc., other co-occurring illnesses, and those might need to be addressed before the actual hoarding symptoms need to be addressed. Team interventions are often the best resulting. That's why we try to do the collaborations. We can help you to build the teams around these situations. So if you go into a home and this individual has elder services, maybe they have some sort of an in-home care, maybe they have a church group that they're working with, maybe there's some positive family support. The family support isn't always positive, but maybe there is. We could get together and say, okay, well, if you do this and you work with them in a certain way, let's try to set some targets, some, specific roles, and work together to help the individual. Cognitive behavioral therapy is very effective in these situations. It's still not perfect. They're, working on improving on this all the time. As I mentioned, we have some buried in treasures groups that we provide support for and provide. And then there's a Clutters Anonymous group in Harwich that's been going on for quite a while. So there are some groups out there that individuals can attend. Again, I can't say this enough. Cleanouts are not recommended. It is not a good course of action to just call, 1-800-GOT-JUNK and have them just clean it all out. It could cause a severe mental breakdown for the individual, and there have been suicides associated with instances of this happening. There is a harm reduction approach. Again, the theory that if the individual isn't going to change all of their behavior, maybe we can shift it enough and get the dwelling unit safe enough for that individual to live there safely. Cognitive behavioral therapy, I won't get into this in too much detail, but again, it challenges the patterns and beliefs of that individual. So, again, back to the plastic bottles, okay, I'm saving this because I don't want it to go into the ocean. Okay, well, let's think about, where that is in the realm of things. You have these bottles. They're actually harming you being in your home. So wouldn't it be better to recycle those, and then, at least you can have a safe home. there are positive programs. Metropolitan Boston Housing Authority, they had a tenancy preservation program where they would have individuals go in and coach, set goals, and work with the individuals, make referrals to community partners, etc. This one's no longer operating, but it was successful. There was just a change of staff, and they decided not to continue with it. Unfortunately, I believe they have some outside resources that they're bringing in instead of offering it themselves. Like I said, a community-based approach is generally the best. Whatever you can bring together as a team. This slide just really kind of demonstrates some community-based programs that have been very effective. Many of them in Canada. Canada seems to have a really good response. They seem to have some really good ideas on how to help individuals, and really have some good programs. I did want to share this slide with you because sometimes communicating how much material is in a unit or dwelling is hard. And if you need to go to outside resources, social worker, or maybe you call us, it's very helpful to understand, basically at what level we're talking about. And I've had situations where somebody comes to me and says, Erika, oh my God, it's awful. It really is horrible. And I go in and I look around and I'm like, oh God, don't come to my house because this is like nothing. So it's, again, we all have our levels of what we can live with, and et cetera. So this was put together, and I believe it was Smith College. And what they did was they actually have different images. They have ones for a kitchen, a living room, and a bedroom. And I just chose the bedroom because they're really very similar. But basically, you look at the amount of material in the room and say, okay, is there really not a whole lot here? Okay, that's a number one. Is it basically stacked to the ceiling almost all across the room? Okay, that's a 9. And then we have everywhere in between. So, if you come across a situation and you say, God, Erika, the living room was a 3, but maybe the back bedrooms and the bathroom and the kitchen were all a 6 or a 7. Okay, that gives an idea of what it looks like. And this is, again, some way that you could communicate to others about it. So this is another interactive session. So I'm hoping you'll help, through this as well. So now, again, what you're kind of trying to do is picture the whole room, how much clutter is really in that room. So whether you do chat or say it, what do you think for a number on this room? Kind of a tough angle, it's down, but I would say the stuff is just below the window, maybe up to the window. Anybody want to venture a guess?
I would say like a 5 or a 6 myself.
That could be. Anybody else? Quiet group today?
I'm a 5.
Okay.
I think a 5.
So we have
5. I'd go with an 8.
Okay. See, this is the different perceptions that we have. I would lean towards the 5. It's pretty well spread across all of it, just up to the window. The 8 would be a little bit higher. I would say that would be almost halfway up the window, and but again, it's still, we're kind of in the realm. Got a couple more. How about that one?
That's a 9.
Okay. Anybody else?
I would say an 8.
Okay.
I'd go with a 9.
All right.
in the chat, I have an 8 or a 9 by one of the members.
Okay. Yeah, this is another one where the angle is kind of tough. I mean, I might go a little lower to a 7. But again, I I think 8 or a 9 is fine. The 9, 8 or 9s is really, closer to the ceiling. But again, it really just kind of gives you an idea. The one thing you want to be careful not to do with situations like this is say, oh, I would give that a 5, but there's squalor there, so I'm going to bump it up to an 8. It has nothing to do with squalor. It's only the amount of material. So if this was all Meals on Wheels and rotting food, again, you would still stick with the 7, but then say, but there's severe squalor, rotting food, vermin, etc. So that, like I said, that's just one things you want to be careful of. And as far as, again, trying to help individuals, like I said, we're happy to try to consult on any matters. Again, maybe there's family members that might help. You want to make sure that, again, they're on good terms, because sometimes that can make it harder. If they've been, clashing for years on this, then, maybe the daughter or son kind of steps back and other people start, and then maybe we could start slowly bringing them in to help. I met with a family, and it was, they were trying to help their elderly mother. And I think there was like 5 adult children, couple of guys and 3 girls. And it really was the spectrum. There was this one girl who was like, I really want to help her. She's doing so good. I know this is just, it's hard for her. To the other end of just clean it up. Let's just get somebody in there and just throw everything out. And then you had the people in the middle. Well, so it was really kind of amazing. And it wound up being successful in that they were able to bring other people in to help. It took a long time. They didn't get it quite to where they wanted it, but it did make it safer for her. Social services, definitely reach out to elder services, councils on aging. Reach out to us. And at the end of the slide deck, we have some resources that you can go to. We are under, like I said, the Barnstable County Department of Health and Environment. So if you go to capecod.gov health department, you'll find us under environmental health. But in general, if you Google Cape Cod Hoarding Resource Network, it'll bring you right there. We have a resource list. We don't necessarily vet the resources, but we list everybody that's available in the area. Again, severe cases only, bring in the heavy chore, the biohazard. Sometimes it's a matter of, the rest of the unit or home is hoarding, where the kitchen might be squalor. That's where you might want to bring in the biohazard company to just address the kitchen, and then you can slowly address the rest of the area. I advise against trying to bring in the health department, because they really do not have any tools in their toolbox. The health department, like I said, can go in, issue an order letter, but they don't necessarily have the resources to offer that person to help them work through this problem. It might traumatize them further, so that they really kind of close up and don't let anybody else in. And really, if, once that order letter is issued, the health department has to follow up on it. And, that's where you might get into, going to court, etc. So you want to be careful on that realm. And again, I'm happy to talk through any of these issues. Just a couple more slides. We've got, again, what are the priorities? Are they acquiring? Maybe that's what we address first. Safety, you want to address the safety concerns. Maybe the regulatory authorities are already in there, so you want to make sure you address those first. And then, the individual might have physical limitations. Maybe they don't have access to disposal. We worked with a town one time. The individual couldn't afford a landfill sticker. So we spoke to the town, and they said, well, can she pay us, $10 a week? And she said yes, and that's how it worked out. So, sometimes it's just a matter of trying to negotiate. Like I said, we have some buried in treasures self-help groups that we've been able to start up with some of our staff. We have a training coming up next week for anybody who wants to facilitate a group. We have one spot left if anybody is interested in it. I have to say, the people that have facilitated these groups have really enjoyed it. They've enjoyed connecting with the group and helping them. And it's a very successful program. Individuals often do it more than once because the first time around you're just kind of getting into it, and then the other kind of helps them keep going. So it's based on the book Buried in Treasures. You can get it off of Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any place like that. And like I said, Clutters Anonymous is available in Harwich. This is going to be available in the slide deck. And like I said, these are our groups for this fall. And like I said, we have a Cape Cod Hoarding resource directory. And then the last slide itself has some resources. The mass housing hoarding page is very helpful, has a lot of great resources on it. We have a link to that on our website. The IOCD the International OCD information, and then of course the ASPCA has some good stuff on animal hoarding. So, all right, I hope that was helpful. I'm open for questions. I'll stop sharing at the moment.
Thank you, Erica. Yeah, I just put a bunch of links that were on the slide in the chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or throw it in the chat and I'll read it. Mariette, I can see you raising your hand. Go ahead.
So I had a question about the ethics of being a realtor, and if it's my client that is the hoarder, what is the boundary line ethically for me to be seeking help for solving the problem, but yet I don't want to be divulging, basically a health hazard or a privacy issue of my client.
So I'm not sure I got all of that, but my understanding of the question is basically, yeah, where's your limits as a realtor and the privacy piece of your client? So there's kind of two pieces of this. One is the diagnosis of hoarding disorder, and then there are the symptoms of hoarding. So, I think, I understand, you're not required to keep it quiet, shall we say, but I think as part of your working with the individual, I think you could probably address things like, again, I'm concerned that the level of clutter in your home is going to make it hard to sell. Can I bring in some assistance for you? Or is there any help that you need, that I can connect you with? And then, at that point, definitely give us a call and we can see if we can help, or give her our number. And I really should have put the main number on that. It's on the hoarding.
I can pull it up for you, Erica.
That sounds good. So it's the 774-330-3001.
Can you say that one more time?
Absolutely. 774-330-3001. That's a main line that we use at the county. It's for general information, but if individuals call that, leave a message, we can call them back and again work on resources for them, see if we can connect them with anybody, and really talk through the individual situation, because each situation's different. We try to get some sort of a flow chart, but it's really hard to do based on the situation. I hope that answers your question.
A subset of that would be, and again, this is a common situation for us in the state. This one it's in the state. So we're not talking with the person that created the problem, but we are having to manage the aftermath. The person is no longer with us, and yet we have in order to market the property and to deal with all of that. What about that?
So, you know, again, once from what I'm understanding of your question, like I said, it kind of broke out a little bit, is that you're talking about a situation where the individual is no longer with us. You have a home that you need to sell and it is full of material. You know, that really kind of tips away from us, you know, where we're dealing on helping the actual individual and really towards a cleaning company, because at that point you're not concerned about an individual being traumatized, you know, by the materials. You know, an organizer might be able to go through the stuff. That's a hard situation. I totally understand that. We had a case in one of the towns where somebody bought a property, and I'm assuming sight unseen, but the individual was still living on the property when they took ownership, and then they had to try to um, get the property back. And it was in, you know, I went in there. It was probably one of the worst situations that I've been in, because the stacks were taller than me.
See, that what I'm wondering about in terms of, because realtors are working to maximize a financial situation for our client, really bottom line, money. Yeah, in a certain amount of time. So if we went with a clean out, which is in this situation, it seemed to make sense because there's no individual still cleaning the product. So when you said about clean outs don't work for you, that wouldn't be that issue. But the issue would be, would there be, you know, boxes and silver coins? Would there be in valuable art? It's something that's hidden away. You know, how do you get how do you do it?
Again, so basically my understanding is that, you know, you're looking for, if, you know, if you have those items, you know, obviously it's going to cost for a clean out. You know, there are some companies that will come in and take the items and try to sell them and give a portion of it. You know, unfortunately, I'm not aware of any one organization that would just basically kind of come in and try to make the most out of the money from the items themselves. You know, the only thing I could think of is the usual yard sale or estate sale.
But I want to get this out there because it gets into the unique aspect of the kind of work we do, you know, on behalf of another entity, and in terms of maximizing value.
Mariana, just so you know, it's really hard to hear your questions. I don't know if you have a bad connection, but you're coming in and out, so it's really, I'm having a hard time understanding. I think Erika might be too. So,
Last one I didn't get.
Better chat.
Yeah, I would say that if you want to, you know, follow up with Erika or thanks, Joellen. If you have specific questions, maybe set aside some time to speak with her directly, because for the group, we're having trouble hearing. At this point, does anyone have any additional questions or comments that they would like to ask while we have Erika on the line with us? I hope this was helpful. I learned a lot, and I thought I had a pretty good handle on hoarding. I like the hoarding versus squalor, because I think sometimes we think that they're hand in hand. So that was very helpful to me.
Hi, this is Carrie.
What's that?
This is Carrie. I do have a question, if that's okay.
Sure, absolutely.
So my question would just be in terms of if we're trying to sell a property and a neighbor has hoarding on the outside of the home, so it's obvious to the neighborhood, it's obvious to the buyers. Does the homeowner have any method to try to get something done?
That's hard.
Yeah.
You know, I think, you know, sometimes there is the neighborhood associations, which might even have a little bit more pull than others. That might be where you try to bring in a town agency. Sometimes the building department or probably not planning. Sometimes the building department has like what they designate as a junkyard. If it tips over to that, sometimes the health department will get involved in that. But I will say that that is something that it's not easy. It's definitely, it varies town by town as to who might actually come out and respond to that.
It's too bad. That's too bad.
Yeah.
There's
It is. It's tough. It's that's one of the harder ones is the neighborhood situation.
All right. Thank you.
I wish I had an answer.
All right. I don't see anyone else put any questions in the chat. So Erika, thank you so much for your time today and for addressing, hoarding awareness with our members. And I put Erika's contact information in the chat. Please feel free to save those links as well so that you have access to them. This was a recorded session, so we will be sure to follow up with everyone so that you have this to refer back to as well. But thank you everyone for your time this morning, and be sure to sign up for the next in-person Realtor Safety class, which is coming up on September 24th. And that's going to be more interactive because it's in person, and we hope that we see you then. Thank you all so much.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Erika.